Congrats on the gigs. First time I had a chance to see you in these digs, even though you had a full season on your belt. But nice to see you. Congrats. And it's interesting to see how things evolve and people in the different roles and how it the ripple effect over the years. It's interesting. So congrats there. All right. So let's. My whole thing, I didn't want to actually kind of walk you guys through a presentation. I just wanted to kind of talk about. Well, first off, what I already mentioned, which is missing everybody and not being able to see people face to face, and that's one thing I definitely value, and a lot of us value as well. So another person that may be joining is my counterpart, Dave Keller. Just as a level set across the NFL video coordinator ranks or video director ranks, it's important to understand who your vendor is, quite frankly, and your contacts at said vendors. So specific to me, I would be, I've evolved into, 3 years ago, I was moved into a business development role where many of you had known me in an engineering capacity where I was either helping out with cameras or decks or servers or whatever the case may be. 3 years ago, actually almost about 4 years ago now, I was moved into a business development capacity, and I had a national accounts sales specific role where it became more regional. And I used to operate more kind of internationally, not just domestically, but also across the pond and stuff as an engineering capacity. So they wound up saying, hey, well, you can keep doing what you're doing, but we want you to do it specific to sports. We want you to do it specific to the western half of the country. So every team that finds itself west of the Mississippi, including Wisconsin, or in addition to Wisconsin, so the Packers would be my responsibility, and everybody else, geographically east of the Mississippi, but not including Wisconsin, would be my counterpart, Dave Keller. Now, he's not able to join, or he may join in progress. He was actually taking his 85-year-old mom out to get her shots, and they're in Canada, so that's probably a good thing. But yeah, so I wanted to kind of level set the idea that I'm still kind of a contact that you guys can consider, and it doesn't have to be specific to my region. I talk to a lot of the guys out east or outside of my core region all the time because those relationships still exist. And I want you guys to consider me, as I've always tried to have you consider me, as a resource that whether it's Sony or not, you can ask me knowing full well that you'll get the honest scoop, because I'm an engineer first, and I'm more about the reliability and trust factor, not so much about the sales, because at the end of the day, the sales are going to come. We make great products, and to the tune to where now I'm in charge of sales, to where when SoFi bought all the cameras for their new stadium, when Allegiant bought their cameras for the new stadium, when Globe Life Field bought all their new cameras, those are the deals that I do as well. For all sports related stuff. So it's pro, college, teams, venues, regional sports networks, that all funders all under us directly. But what's unique about me is I offer a little bit of an engineering acumen too, so I can be helpful. And also I recently just shot some stuff that's a talking point about our large format cameras being used more like motivational highlight reel stuff, more on the production side of your guys' organizations perhaps. But it is something that's a talking point because, as you guys all saw, that large depth of, or the shallow depth of field large format camera was heavily used towards the end of the season by some of the A broadcasts, and then well into the playoffs, well into the Super Bowl, and now you're seeing those same type looks being utilized in golf and MMA broadcasts and the like, because the technology is evolving. So I'm involved in all of that. But specific to this need and your immediate interest, there's a couple things I wanted to bring attention to all of you. So again, great to see you all. Thank you for sitting in the time. For those of you that aren't being shy and I can see your faces, I'm happy to see your faces and I'll, at the very least, see the names. But what I have right behind me is the Z750, and there were a couple of you, or a couple of the teams that had a chance to get your hands on this. One of them specifically reached out and said, hey, we'd like to try out a new camera, a new 4K camera. So I sent this out to one of the teams. I don't know if you guys are aware of who it was, and I'll let you guys talk amongst yourselves. But the Z750, this is essentially the ENG camera dream. So if you guys are looking to make one last purchase of a shoulder mount camera, because let's face it, it's all going to wind up going down to either a UMR 20 or if you're capturing live in, it's going to be a kind of managed codec. So the quality is important to some extent, But if it comes down to something that you have to worry about, I only have one more camera purchase to make between now and the rest of my career, this is going to be the one. And you won't really have to worry about, oh, okay, well, is it going to break in 4 years because I went maybe with an inferior product that doesn't have the sort of recognition and standard for quality like a Sony product has. Our stuff is typically going to be maybe a little bit more expensive, but you know that your stuff is going to last. So this is the Z750 again, and this is the ENG camera equivalent from a sensor capability, from an image quality standpoint, of the same cameras at those stadiums I mentioned. So it's of the newest technology, and it's also leveraging the same technology that our alpha level cameras are providing, where we make our own sensors, we make our own processing, we make our own cameras, we make our own codecs, we make our own lenses. A lot of other vendors will actually license that stuff. It's not their own technology. Every bit of everything you see with a Sony camera, from lens to the recording media, is all developed by Sony. So the recipe of quality and efficiency of codec and all that stuff is great. But for your instance, I want you guys just to remember, if you need to make a camera purchase, this is a camera that you can replace maybe your kind of old and dying 2000s, or if you want to upgrade your existing Sony camera to something at some point, this is probably going to be it, because it can do 4K 60p, it can record HD at the same time to the same card, and then still be outputting out SDI to your UMR20 and trigger that UMR20. Or if you're still running on HMR10s, it can trigger that HMR10. So if you think about that, it's a backup 4K and an HD on the same card that you're recording to, but also while feeding out to a triggerable UMR20. But what's unique about this is that it also has an SD card slot inside, where you can be recording a proxy video file inside of this camera. And oh, by the way, that 720p proxy can be brought into Exos and DV Sport. So if you really look at it, this is recording 4 different formats at the same time: 4K 60p, 1080, output 720 can trigger to your control. And if that thing takes a dump at some point, which they have from time to time, you're like, oh gosh, well, I have a fail safe that I know that the SD card that's in here that's got my entire game, or you can even drop from here if you want as a backup. This is the alternative that you may want to consider. Okay, so that's the camera. And oh, by the way, I helped produce this book that a third party did that kind of walks through all of the bells and whistles of what this camera does. And so if this is something that you want to standardize across the organization, where it's not just operation, but maybe it's also production, the more of those you guys get, the better the pricing can be. And oh, by the way, you all know that there is MPA pricing across the league. So that's the camera side. I want to actually get into some other things that might be of interest, and that has to do with your archive. There are some teams that have started using, we've been out discussing this the last couple of years, the idea of capturing your old tape shelf content, or even those teams that have been around for a little bit longer that may have content that's on a film roll that needs to be captured and protected. There is a steadily closing window of tape deck heads and decks to be able to do this stuff. But more importantly, if you have this and it's sitting there and you haven't dealt with it yet, at what point are you going to wait too long to where you can't get that content off that tape anymore, or off the film, to preserve it? We have a turnkey service at Sony called Memnon, where a few teams have actually done POCs of this, where we'll allow you to send us 5 to 10 pieces for free. You'll ship it to us, we'll have it encoded or digitized, and we'll either deliver it to you on a hard drive, or we'll land it in our C Cloud service, which is the easiest way to get it there, because you literally say, hey, let me put this all in a bunch of stuff on a skid, send it to you, it's uploaded, encoded, and then boom, all of a sudden I have access to it. And oh, by the way, our delivery mechanism can deliver it into an Exos format or DV Sport format, the interchange format. So that's a way to either take that coach's video content, if you want to get it off and stop killing all this real estate where it's holding up all these shelves and you're still holding on to some tape decks where maybe you'll have an intern in there to do those things. This is something that can be sent to us and done turnkey. So you're literally just throwing money at the solution and being done with it. But it's done in a high quality fashion. So what we do as the proof of concept is we deliver it through our C Cloud service so you can see what it looks like. And part of our service is that when you upload something to it, it generates all these preview proxies. So you never have to download anything. All of that content is visible to you and scrubbable in our cloud service. So that's something that I want to make sure you guys are aware of. We've had combine specials in the past there. Those are kind of things that Sony can offer you, because we have, let's be honest, we have a lot of different solutions. We're not just cameras, and we're not just displays. We're not just boom boxes or headphones. We're a little bit of everything. We do it at the highest level. And that kind of becomes a bit of a one-stop shop. And obviously, Betsy and Brenda and Sam here can actually fulfill a lot of those needs at the product level if needed. So the other thing is, in a practice camera situation, you may be asking, all right, well, we obviously aren't going to be using these for the games if we're using different cameras, but if you need some extra coverage, maybe you have a coach that may have came from the college ranks, and they're used to having 10 different angles more than what you're used to having to cover, and maybe you're not armed with all those angles, so you have to buy some practice cameras. Our lineup currently is just a matter of finding what can shoot inside the local camera with an SD card and shooting in that interchange format, which would be your 720p 8 megabit. Basically what you need to make sure is, as long as the camera can shoot in an AVC HD codec, the third parties, let's say it's Panasonic, they will refer to that as AVC Cam. It's the same format, right? But it's a 720p. In our case, it's listed as HQ, but it's the AVC HD codec. So right now, the standard product line is still the existing NX5R. There's the Z150. The Z90V is another one, and the Z90 it's about a $2,000 camera, but it's a handheld guy that has unbelievable autofocus. So you could put that in the greenest of interns and let them capture some field level content, and it's going to pull focus for you fine. There are a number of things that the differences between the NX5R provide, which is a smaller sensor, longer throw. So if you have some high lift positions that you want to be in, that might be a better solution, or something if you're wanting to shoot opposite end zone and trying to get all the way down to the far sideline, that might be the better camera to cover that. But the Z150 is going to be a 4K sensor. That can be used as a twofer, because in production purposes, if you're trying to limit your purchasing and you have to share resources, given the fact that there's everybody's running at a deficit right now because of lack of fans, everybody's hurting for money. But if you need new equipment, say it's a coach's practice camera, you can say, hey, we can use this, say, as Z150 because it can cover a coach's video, but it also could be used by the production side because it has high frame rate in HD in it. In a 4K sensor that's 1 inch. So you can still get some shallow depth of field to do filmic looking type interviews and things like that. So that's a good way to sell something in-house as a twofer if you were to share a resource, which I know that honestly most of you guys don't do, but that could be a way in a pinch to try to maybe get an extra angle in-house. So that's the Z150. And then again, that Z90V is a camera that has great autofocus and shoots in the format. It's a nice budget conscious camera. So we have the concept of the main camera to possibly replace and be the last DNG camera you'll ever need to buy, because probably I'd say in 3 to 7 years, there's, as slow as the NFL moves, and we all know that's the case, competition committee, whatever's going to be accepted, college will probably lead that path, and however that works within coaches' video and exchange. But the fact is that for right now, this may be something to consider, where you have that sort of standard recording, dropping off things as need be. At some point, this all may wind up being a case where it shoots to the cloud, and all that intercutting is being done from the press box while somebody's watching the game, and cutting that stuff up during the first couple of quarters, because these systems like what our C Cloud service could potentially go up into the cloud. Exos has their service as well. And I'm not saying that C would be a competitor to Exos or DV Sport in those areas. It's just something that could be complementary and is used by a number of teams. In fact, I just got off a webinar where CBS Sports and conferences and other teams are using our cloud service to aggregate all this content, share it, and arm their users without having to be physically on premise to have access to all their content. And it's not just video and stills, it's all documents. So the entire departments at your organization can be using the same platform and having that sort of efficiency in a collaborative workflow. All right, so that's essentially what I wanted to get through, was cameras, archive, and access to your stock. We have a ton of monitors and displays. Obviously, those are things that could be helpful, but I just wanted to focus on the key elements, which were game and what would be practice cameras for your immediate needs. And then just a matter of, if you do have that looming headache that you still haven't dealt with and need to get your tape copies converted into something that's usable, either for coach's video or even if just for posterity, but if it's also film rolls that you need to have scanned in at a higher quality, those are things that our services at Memnon could do. It's a Sony company, it's turnkey, and those are the kind of things that we can help you guys out with. So right at about 15 minutes, probably a little shorter than I had window for, but let's leave some time for either catching up with everybody or you know, any questions you guys might have. I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have, or defer to stuff, or we can pull some stuff off later. But those of you that don't know who I am, my name is Mike DesRoches. I should probably put it started with this, but my name is Mike DesRoches. I live in Southern California right now. This is the kind of hut that I've been living in for the last year, because I still haven't made a single trip since March 13th. I think I was in Seattle and met with the Kraken at the time, and or they weren't pre-Kraken, but that's the last time of last year, almost a year now since I've traveled for stuff. So good for you guys for being able to get out from time to time when you were able to go to games, even though the bubbles might have been something stiff. So, and the nice thing is that if it's something that we can't necessarily deal with ourselves in terms of answering the questions, we have a host of resources of engineering and the like that we can bring in to make sure that you guys are getting your answers quickly and getting the needs that you require.
I will vouch for the Memnon product, because we certainly, we gave you about 25 years worth of tape and it turned it around.
No, it's neat to see how that works and how efficient the process is, because it's truly just turnkey. And the fact that if you do want coaches video stuff brought in at that format, it's easy, so you can keep it in the cloud, or you just use the cloud as an archive backup to what you actually have on your spinning discs on premise. So having that security is nice. And then also you can have all the content disposed of and tapes removed, so you can clear up that real estate and use it for something like, you know, extra head count or just extra office space for y'all, whatever works. Any other questions? By the way, I work for Sony, in case that wasn't made clear. We're talking about Sony products here.
Okay.
And Sam, I see you have another edition. Is that Sydney? I haven't met Sydney, so it is.
Yeah.
All right, Sydney, nice to see you finally. Exchanged many email.
So many emails. It's nice to have a face.
Yeah.
And
All
Mike,
right.
thanks for all your quick help for us.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
as you guests, NFL video coordinators have questions or want to see a demo of something, or you know, we can absolutely be that conduit that gets to Dave and gets to Mike and helps you get to the right person to get the answers fast. And Mike, you're awesome. I mean, I know sometimes we're texting you at some weird hours, and you're always great to be really thorough and really responsive.
Yeah, I'm happy to do it. It's look, I cut my teeth here at Sony as a sales support engineer. I did that, was a product manager for a while, and I was a sales support engineer for 16 years. Trained all the Survivor shooters, all the Amazing Race shooters on how to use our cameras. Almost every single major reality show used our Sony cameras, and I was involved in getting them along. So and on occasion, some of you may have seen my dumpy ass out there shooting some of the football games. So I like getting out and shooting. I'm a person that understands exactly what you're going through. I've done some of that stuff at some level. And honestly, this camera is, once it's done here, I'm sending it back to the Survivor guys, because they're going to be replacing their existing F800 camera, which has been the workhorse for all of reality in the HD space. And this is going to wind up being used on this season while they test it out before they buy for next season. So this is the next camera that they will be using. And if you guys are watching anything of significance on television and Netflix for that part, or Amazon, pretty much everything you're watching now is either shot on a Sony live camera like this, or like shows like The Voice and things like that. All of those are shot on Sony cameras. And as you guys know, the A-Trucks at the Thursday night, Sunday night, Monday Night Football, those are all using 100% Sony cameras. There's a reason why our stuff is as good as it is. And when you have the teams, the organizations, I should say, where cost is not an option or not an issue, they 100% go with our stuff, because our stuff is so much better. Now, you guys may be in a different story where maybe budget becomes an issue, but the reality is you know what you're going to get with our stuff, and it's going to last a long time.
How about Real Housewives of Salt Lake? Are they using your camera? Because if they are, you ought to be.
Whoa, wouldn't you know? Wouldn't you know? I thought it was your show.
Oh yeah,
that's
that's
not
right.
that.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. What camera are you using here? You tell me.
It's a secret.
Right. So Sam's just the showrunner. I get it. Well, the reality is today everybody's wearing probably a lot more hats than they used to. And that's what I want to kind of convey to the group at large here is that, look, rather than spinning your wheels, if there's something that we can help out with, reach out to any of us on this call, whether it's the Media Right team or myself or my counterpart, Dave. If you don't already have his contact information, by all means, feel free to reach out and I can get that to you. But, you know, leveraging your vendors, whether it's Sony or whoever you have your trust in, don't forget to lean on them because they are your trusted sort of partner. Some relationships are going to be tighter than other, but by all means, that's why they exist, and that's why we're here. So don't be afraid to reach out and allow us to help you out.
Yep, we second that emotion.
You're going to get me all singing.
I
love
know.
that song. Sorry, all right.
Stick to the camera, man. Stick to the
That's
camera.
awesome.
I think there was a comment from somebody outside of
Yes,
the
I
room
said
here.
stick to the cameras. Stick to the camera.
Ah, come on, Dave. Come on, Dave. And if there's nothing else from the teams, I did want to convey this real quick. Like we've all been going through some tough times, and the people that do what you guys do don't get enough credit, right? The behind the scenes people. I was just talking to a guy from the Dodgers who's like, yeah, we need to cut down our support net contracts because, you know, they're cutting back. I'm like, well, we did drop it down by 20% last year because you said that you need to keep people in house. So they did that stuff, and then the team wound up signing like 3 days later a player for $300 million. Yet they're claiming poverty. The issue though is that guy who essentially is one of the key ups on the broadcast in space there might not be able to get a ring. So just, you know, those of you like Patrick that are working at franchises that treat them truly like family, that's what I immediately thought about. You know, if you're able to get through and your organizations didn't have any furloughs or something like that, that's great. But more importantly, you guys as the sports people had to endure some crazy stuff in this tier 1 bubble. And as a sports fan, I was dying to see sports come back, and it wouldn't have happened without you guys, your organization. So personally, I just want to thank you guys for your efforts. Many of you I've been friends with for many years, and I thank you for those cherished friendships. It's wonderful to see you guys, and those of you that don't know who I am and we haven't met before, I look forward to meeting you guys at some point down the line when things do eventually normalize. But I'm a huge fan of what you guys do in terms of the unappreciated efforts that is hours and hours endlessly, all hours of the day, all days of the week. So that's why I really want to be there for you guys if I can help out in any way, because I truly get it and the sacrifice you guys do with your lives and your families and all that stuff. So thank you guys for what you do. We appreciate it. And by all means, don't hesitate to reach out if I or anybody at Sony can be of any assistance. So thank you guys for the time today.